If you've been waiting for word on another stimulus check, you're going to want to stick around for the next few minutes. There's been a lot of buzz about payments potentially going out around July 22nd, and I know many of you are wondering whether your name is on the list, whether this even applies to retirees on fixed incomes, and what, if anything, you need to do to make sure you don't miss out. What we actually know versus what's just rumor, who typically qualifies for these types of payments and who gets left out, and the one simple step you should take right now to protect yourself from scams and misinformation. Now, before we go any further, I need to be completely straight with you. When you see headlines about stimulus checks arriving July 22nd, it's natural to get hopeful. Fixed incomes don't stretch like they used to, and every dollar matters when you're budgeting around Social Security, a small pension, or savings that's been drawing down faster than you planned. But here's the thing, and this is important. There is no new federal stimulus program that Congress has passed and the President has signed into law as of right now. What you're seeing in headlines and social media posts is almost always referring to state-level relief programs, tax rebate checks, or one-time payments that individual states have authorized using their own surplus funds or federal pandemic-era money that had to be spent by certain deadlines. Some of those state programs do happen to have distribution timelines that fall around mid to late July, which is where that July 22nd date keeps popping up. So the first thing to understand is that this isn't a fourth federal stimulus check like the ones we saw in 2020 and 2021. That distinction matters more than you might think, because I've talked to too many retirees who sat by the mailbox waiting for a federal check that was never coming, while completely missing a state rebate they actually were entitled to. Let me give you a real example. Last year, a retiree named Margaret, she's 74, lives on Social Security and a small IRA distribution, kept seeing posts online about new stimulus checks and assumed it was federal. She waited. She didn't file anything extra because she thought, I'm on Social Security, they'll just send it like before. But her state, California, had the middle-class tax refund going out, and because she hadn't filed a 2020 tax return, she hadn't needed to. Her income was below the filing threshold. She almost missed the automatic qualification. She ended up getting it, but only after she filed a late return to establish eligibility. The point is, assuming it's all automatic because you're a senior can cost you money you were owed. Generally speaking, states that issued these rebates based them on your most recent tax filing, usually 2020 or 2021, depending on the program. If you filed a return and your income fell below a certain threshold, you likely got a check or direct deposit automatically. For seniors who don't normally file taxes because Social Security isn't taxable for many of you, this is where the catch comes in. Some states used other databases like property tax records or Social Security Administration data to identify eligible residents. Others did not. And here's a detail that doesn't get talked about enough. Even within the same state, the amount you received often varied based on whether you had dependents, whether you filed jointly, or whether you claimed certain credits. It wasn't one size fits all, and it certainly wasn't just everyone gets $1,400 like the federal rounds were. If you're watching this and thinking, well, I live in a state that didn't do any rebate program, you're probably right to be skeptical of the July 22nd headlines. As of this year, only a handful of states still have outstanding payments or newly authorized programs, and many of those are winding down. States like New Mexico, Maine, and a few others had programs with specific distribution windows, but most of the large-scale state rebates have already gone out. So if you're seeing fresh claims about massive new payments, that's your first red flag. Real government programs don't get announced through viral Facebook posts with all-caps headlines and no link to an official .gov website. Every time there's buzz about stimulus checks, the fraudsters come out of the woodwork. I'm talking about phone calls from people claiming to be the IRS or Social Security Administration, emails with links that look official but aren't, and even text messages saying you need to verify your information to receive your payment. Let me be crystal clear about something. The IRS will never call you out of the blue and demand personal information to release a payment. Social Security will never text you a link to click for a stimulus check. And no government agency will ever ask you to pay a fee up front to receive a benefit you're owed. If someone contacts you claiming otherwise, hang up. Delete the message. It's a scam. The only legitimate way to check on any federal tax-related payment is through irs.gov, and for state programs, you need to go to your state's official revenue or taxation department website. Now, if you've been with me this far, I really appreciate you sticking around, and honestly, this is the kind of information that can save you from a headache, or worse, from losing money to a scam. If you're finding this helpful, I'd love it if you'd hit that like button and subscribe. I put out new videos every week specifically for retirees and seniors navigating benefits, taxes, and financial decisions, and I don't do hype or clickbait. Just straight talk you can actually use. It really helps the channel reach more people who need this kind of guidance. Alright, let's get into something that surprises a lot of retirees, and it's about how these payments interact with your other benefits. There's a persistent myth out there that receiving a stimulus check or state rebate will reduce your Social Security, lower your SSI, or count as income that pushes you into a higher Medicare premium bracket. For the federal stimulus payments we saw in 2020 and 2021, this was not true. They were structured as advanced tax credits, not taxable income, and they did not count as resources for SSI purposes for 12 months. But, and this is a big but, state rebate programs are not automatically treated the same way. Some states explicitly excluded their rebates from income calculations for state benefit programs, but the rules for federal programs like SSI can be more nuanced depending on how the state structured the payment. If you're receiving SSI and you got a state rebate, it's worth checking whether your state treated it as excluded income or whether you needed to spend it within a certain time frame to avoid it counting against your resource limits. The payment method itself. You might remember that during the federal stimulus rounds, some people got direct deposits, some got paper checks, and some got those economic impact payment debit cards. The debit cards confused a lot of seniors. Some thought they were junk mail and threw them away. State programs have had similar issues. If your state is sending out payments around July or any other time, and you moved recently, or you closed a bank account that was on your last tax return, or your mailing address with the state revenue department is outdated, your payment could get delayed, sent to the wrong place, or returned. The fix is usually simple, updating your address or banking information through the proper channels, but you have to know to do it. If you owe back state taxes, child support, or certain other debts, your state rebate might be intercepted to cover those obligations. Federal stimulus checks had some protections against offset for certain debts, but state programs often don't have the same safeguards. Let me shift gears for a moment and talk about what you should actually do if you think you might be eligible for a payment that's going out soon. First, identify the specific program. If you see a headline about July 22nd payments, look for the name of the state and the name of the program. Generic stimulus check headlines are usually aggregators repackaging old news for clicks. Once you know the program name, go directly to your state's official website. Look for a press release or FAQ from the Department of Revenue or Taxation. They will tell you the eligibility criteria, the payment schedule, and whether you need to take any action. Second, check your most recent tax filing status. Did you file? Was your income below the threshold? Did you use direct deposit or request a paper check? Third, if you believe you qualified but didn't receive a payment, most states have a claims process or a hotline, but there's usually a deadline. Don't wait 6 months and then wonder what happened. What about people who only get Social Security and don't file taxes? Are we just left out? It's a fair question, and the answer depends on the specific program. For the federal stimulus checks, the IRS worked with the Social Security Administration to get payment information for non-filers, and there was also a non-filer portal where you could enter your information. For state programs, it's much more of a mixed bag. Some states did use Social Security data or other state databases to identify eligible seniors. Others required a tax filing to establish eligibility, which meant non-filers had to submit a return even if they owed no tax. If you're a non-filer and you're wondering about a specific program, the only way to know for sure is to check your state's guidance. Don't assume you're ineligible, but also don't assume you're automatically included. There's one more thing I need to mention, and it's about the broader economic context that sometimes drives these payments. When states have budget surpluses, often from higher than expected tax revenue or unspent federal relief funds, lawmakers sometimes authorize one-time rebates as a way to return money to residents. These aren't ongoing programs, and they're not based on economic hardship the way federal stimulus was. They're political decisions, and they vary wildly from state to state and year to year. What that means for you is that even if you got a state rebate last year, there's no guarantee your state will do one this year or next. It's not a trend you can count on. Your financial planning shouldn't assume future stimulus or rebate payments because they're unpredictable by design. One of the best things you can do for your financial security as a retiree is to make sure your information is current with all the agencies that might need to reach you. That means the Social Security Administration has your correct address and bank account for direct deposit. It means the IRS has your current information if you do file taxes. It means your state revenue department knows where to send correspondence. And it means your Medicare information is up to date. I know it sounds basic, but you'd be amazed how many payment delays, missed notices, and even benefit interruptions happen simply because someone moved and forgot to update their address across all these different systems. It takes maybe an hour once a year to verify everything, and it can save you months of frustration. The tax implications of these payments. Federal stimulus checks were not taxable income. Most state rebates are also not taxable at the state level. But here's a wrinkle. If you itemized deductions and claimed state taxes paid as a deduction, and then you received a state tax refund or rebate, you might need to report that rebate as income on your federal tax return in the following year. It's not a huge amount for most retirees, but if you're close to an income threshold for things like Medicare premium surcharges or certain tax credits, even a small amount of additional income can have a ripple effect. If you received a state rebate last year and you're not sure about the tax treatment, it's worth a quick conversation with your tax preparer or a look at the IRS guidelines on state tax refunds. Don't let a small rebate trigger an unexpected tax bill or a notice from the IRS. Thanks for spending this time with me. Take care of yourself, stay sharp out there, and I'll see you in the next one.